Good morning, world. This is Edward Bevilacqua here in Las Vegas. Novum-U talking about the TED Talk, Simon Sinek. And this goes with our discussions. I want to say welcome and thank you to the people at the classroom in Reno and the students at Casa Grande and the people at CCDC. And it turns out we're starting to get a couple people watching these things live every day. So thank you for being there. Just off side note, this is actually the second time I'm doing this today. The first time we tried something new, doing it from a smartphone, thinking that it would be better and easier, but it turned out that it timed out after 11 seconds. So if you were one of the people watching it, the 11-second thing, you know, we do the Nolan Bushnell. We're never as crappy as we are today. And that was an experiment to make it better that didn't really work, but guess what? Here we are now. So I'm going to take that as no harm, no foul learning experience. Today, we're going to focus on the third part of outside our skull-sized kingdom. So we are in week 3 of our 4-week program. This is called Outside Our Skull-Sized Kingdom. Last week was Inside Our Skull-Sized Kingdom, week number 2. Week number 1 was kind of orientation. What are we doing here? Orientation and overview. And next week is our employment planning workshop, where we tie everything together and then use it to move forward in our life. So today we're going to talk about Simon Sinek, which was a very important part of Outside Our Skull-Sized Kingdom. And then we'll prepare it for tomorrow. But first, we're going to do a little summary, a little overview, recap, once again, of where we started and where we're going. And the reason for that, if you put on your Neil Martin hat, is we need to get this into our unconscious brain. We need to do this stuff automatically. And the way to do that is it takes dedication, and that's basically routine, doing it over and over and over again. So if you find what I'm saying, oh, I've heard that before, that's a good thing, because now it's getting in. If your attitude is, that's interesting, never thought about that, or I didn't know about that, then that's kind of an indication to you that you're not really retaining the information that we're talking about. So I will digress and start at the beginning. Our purpose for being here, our fundamental purpose for being here, is to help people learn the tools and techniques for success. It's not to teach, it's to help people learn. And it's tools and techniques for success. So if we're in law school, or like when I was in law school, you take that rule and you break it down, you underline the keywords. So to learn the tools and techniques of success, where I already talked about the word learn as opposed to teach. Our job is to help you learn, not to teach you. The tools and techniques, those are pretty obvious what they are. Everybody knows what tools are and techniques are for success. So success is open to different interpretation of what success means. And so for our purpose, the definition of success in our program right here is what? Think about it. You should know it's having money plus meaning and purpose. In our definition, you're not going to be successful if money is not part of the equation, and you're not going to be successful if you don't have meaning and purpose. So it's a dual thing. Success is money plus meaning and purpose. So in that, we break that down, underline the word money. What's the definition of money? Well, in our class right here, money is just the ability to experience more. There's no value judgment associated with money. Our value judgment with money would be the same as a value judgment regarding a hammer. A hammer is a tool. It can be used to make things, and it can be used to break things. It's just a tool. Money is a tool, and it's a tool to experience more. So if I have no money and I need to get across town, my options are very limited. I can walk, or I can beg, ask somebody for a ride. If I have $10, I can still walk or ask somebody for a ride, but I have a few more choices. Maybe I can take an Uber or a Lyft. Maybe I can buy a bus pass, a bus ticket. Or maybe I could just say to somebody, I'll pay for your gas if you'll drive me there. If I have more money, so now I have $50. Now I have more. I have the ability to experience getting to across town more ways. And then ultimately more money, I have the ability to buy a bicycle, buy a moped, buy a car, have somebody chauffeur me, take a helicopter. Money is just the ability to experience more. And people who have money, but they don't have meaning or purpose, oftentimes are not happy. And then oftentimes celebrities will end up killing themselves because they say, fundamentally, there's no purpose in continuing to live. It's just too painful. But that's beyond the scope of our thing. We're just defining what we mean by success. So success is money plus meaning and purpose. So money is the ability to experience more. Meaning and purpose, for our definition right here, other people have different definitions. Our definition is what? Service to others, helping other people improve their lives. And that requires a sacrifice. It's not really having meaning and purpose if you're helping people, but it doesn't impact you at all. You don't really care about it. It's just like, you're driving your car, you get off the freeway, you're on the off ramp, you're at a stoplight, and there's a guy with a cardboard sign that says, please give me money. If you have $1 and you hand him $1, that's not meaning and purpose. There's no sacrifice involved with that. And you might be doing it for bad reasons. So that's not what we mean by service to others. So it requires a sacrifice. And the best sacrifice you can do is the sacrifice of your time to help other people improve their lives. And an investment of your time with no expectation of return would be a pretty good benchmark for, do you have meaning and purpose? So it has to be without any expectation of return. So if you're going to a soup kitchen as part of a school project, that's not really meaning and purpose. In fact, I would argue that could usually be a counterproductive thing, many levels beyond the scope of this discussion. But our goal is to help our students learn the tools and techniques to be successful, which is how to get money and have meaning and purpose. And we do that through another term that's called power. And our definition of power is very simply getting other people to do what you want. Once again, no value judgment to it. In business, getting other people to do what you want is called management. In the military, getting other people to do what you want is called leadership. Other people that want to go the negative connotation will say manipulation. So we're just using as a general term, power equals getting other people to do what you want. And we would argue that you cannot be successful if you don't have other people in the equation. You can't really be successful, can't really have a meaningful, fulfilling life if you're out there and there's nobody else in your life. You're living off the land, you're growing your own food, you're not reading books that other people wrote, you're not writing to people. You're just a guy living out there, sort of like a solitary animal. That's not our definition of success. Maybe somebody can argue why that's actually equally successful. And I guess if we're just atoms in the void, that's just as good as any other thing. But for our purposes, our class, we think there's pretty compelling evidence that if you have money and you're helping other people improve their lives, that's something worth striving for. And at the end, you'll have a life of meaning and purpose, and plus bad things won't happen. And one good thing that'll happen is other people will be proud of you. So that's our goal, is to help people learn those things. And we break it down and we start with the questions of, well, in order to be successful, I need to know who I am and I need to know why I behave the way I do. Because if I don't know who I am and I don't know why I behave the way I do, I could think I'm somebody else, and I could think that I behave a certain way for a reason that's not actually true. And that probably won't end up in success. That's kind of like, as Dr. Eamon says, throwing darts in the dark. And that's not our goal. So we look to answer the two questions: who am I and why do I behave the way I do? And the belief is, if I know who I am and I know why I behave the way I do, then I can adjust my behavior to fit the circumstances that I'm in. So if I need to run into a burning building, I can get myself to do it. If I need to not run into a burning building, I can get myself to not do that as well. So that's what we're trying to get to. And so we break it down that into two parts: inside my skull-sized kingdom and outside my skull-sized kingdom. We say skull-sized kingdom because, it's kind of like our view of the world really revolves around ourselves. So we're just going with that. I'm not going to break it down right here. That's beyond the scope of this. But inside my skull-sized kingdom, and looking at why do I behave the way I do. So first of all, I see that, well, who I am, we have adopted Sebastian Song's I am my connectome. Inside the neurons in my brain are stored my lived past, my anticipated future, my imagination, my ability to simulate, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I know they're stored on my neurons, not anywhere else, because if I have my arm cut off, I don't lose memories. I might act differently, might behave differently, but I'm still who I am. But if I have a golf ball sized blood clot in my brain, as Jill Bolte Taylor talked about in her TED Talk, she described herself the morning of her stroke as she was a woman in an infant in a woman's body. She couldn't read, write, walk, talk. And it took her about 10 years of rehabilitation to get back to where she was as a brain scientist. So I am my brain. I am what's stored in my brain, I should say. My lived past, my anticipated future, my imagination, my ability to simulate, and a whole bunch of other things. And so we start with the brain, break it down. We see, oh, it's made of neurons, made of cells. The ones we focus on are called neurons. And the neurons contain things that look like branches called dendrites. And on the branches are things that are like little buds that are called synapses. And the synapses contain little things called vesicles. And through the vesicles, chemicals are emitted and received that are called neurotransmitters. So we see that all of our lived past, anticipated future, et cetera, is stored in our neurons and the combination of neurons. And we have about 86 billion of them and about 10,000 connections or 10,000 synapses each. So that's a big number. And that's where who we are is stored. And again, we believe that's true because if we damage our neurons, we're not the same person we were. Then we focus on neurotransmitters, and we find that all of our feelings come from the release of neurotransmitters. Okay, great, cool. And usually people release neurotransmitters based upon things that happen to them from the outside, something they experience, but they can be equally released from things we imagine on the inside. So, my feelings are the result of the release of neurotransmitters. And so we study 7 neurotransmitters, 4 really positive ones: endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. And then we study cortisol, a little bit of study of cortisol and testosterone and adrenaline. And we see that these things individually and combined as a cocktail get us to feel certain ways. And then we can step back and now apply it to ourselves and say, my feelings affect my behavior, and my behavior affects the outcome. If I don't feel good, now if I'm going to a job interview and I don't feel good, then my behavior is going to be reflected in my feelings, and the outcome is going to be reflected probably in my behavior. So we can kind of work our way backwards and say, well, if we want the outcome to be this, here's the behavior we need, and here's how I need to feel. So I need to release these neurotransmitters to get me to feel the way I need to feel, so that I behave the way I need to behave to get the outcome I want. So in other words, it kind of comes down to controlling our emotions and being able to, as we say, dial in who I need to be right now in this circumstance. I might need to get myself to feel very courageous and run into a burning building. On the other hand, I might feel like, no, I need to be more sensible, because if I run into a burning building and I come out dead, a whole bunch of things that are a lot worse are going to happen by my being dead than my not running in the building. And so we have the ability to control the release of neurotransmitters. And we can do that based upon external events, but we can also do it based upon internal things, which we label as our beliefs. So we get to the point of what we believe will trigger the release of neurotransmitters, which will make us feel, that will affect our behavior, and our behavior will affect the outcome. And then we can go backwards from that too. And so in week number 2, which is the first part of our brain, inside our skull-sized kingdom, we learn how our brain works. And we come to the conclusion, okay, if I know how my brain works, then I know how to dial in who I need to be right now. But I also know how everyone else's brain works. It works the same way. What I don't know is what they believe, but I can find out what they believe, because people generally tell you what they believe. Generally, people don't hide what they believe. They don't try to fool you on what they believe. Yeah, sometimes they do, but generally, you can figure out what people's beliefs are. And once you know their beliefs, then you know how to trigger the release of neurotransmitters, which will get them to feel a certain way, which should affect their behavior etc. I'll call you back. And so next is that's what we get from the first, from week 2 inside our skull size kingdom. Here's why I behave the way, here's who I am, here's why I behave the way I do. Now this week, week 3, we step outside our skull size kingdom, and we notice there's a lot of people out there who think the world revolves around them. But what I notice is they actually form groups. And so this week we start with David Logan's TED Talk about tribes, groups of people. So he'll say birds fly, fish swim, people form tribes. People group up, they're not individual people. So even though we think the world revolves around us, we actually group up with other people. And so David Logan's proposition is very simple. Join a tribe and nudge it forward. So if we want people to do what we want, we can either build our own tribe, or we can join a tribe and get that tribe, the people in the tribe, to do what we want them to do. So following David Logan's thing, it's okay, great. People form tribes. So if I want people to do what I want, one way to do it is to join a tribe and then nudge it forward, get people to do what I want them to do. Cool, great, all right, so good. So at the end of the first day, we say, cool, so if I want to be successful and I want people to do what I want them to do, one way to do that is to join a tribe and then become like a leader of the tribe. Get people to do what I want, nudge the tribe forward, make people's lives better, make the tribe better. And in some way, I will become either directly successful, have money plus meaning and purpose, or indirectly, because maybe having this position enables me to get some other position. So we step back from David Logan and say, okay, that's cool, join tribe, nudge it forward, but how do I nudge it forward? And then that goes to day 2, yesterday, Seth Godin, his TED Talk about the tribes we lead. And he gives a 4-step process to how do you nudge a tribe forward. And it's 4 simple things. 1, what? 1, find something to change. You can't nudge a tribe forward if you don't change something. So find part of the status quo to change. 2, tell a story. Well, we probably evolved to be people who are very influenced by storytelling, and that's the evidence. So tell a story. 3, connect the true believers. Connect the people who, when you finish your story, you say basically, who's with me? And people say, I'm with you. Connect those people. Ignore the people who are not with you. Think about Jesus in the New Testament. Jesus is instructing his disciples to go out and spread the word. And he says, but if you have resistance, just dust off your sandals, move on to the next town. Don't argue with the people. Don't fight with the people. Just keep moving forward. We don't need to worry about the people who don't believe in us. Now, footnote, many people get bogged down in this because when they tell the story, they get offended that people don't believe the story. So they argue with the people who don't. They try to persuade them. Not a good use of time and energy. But also, you're probably not going to change people's minds. And you could have the people who are with you decide to sit on the sidelines or to join the other side. So not a good idea. Just keep telling the story, moving forward. And then step 4, when the people say, okay, I'm with you, and they'll basically then say, okay, now what do you want us to do? Just waiting, what do you want us to do? And that's where they're asking you, what do you want us to do? And now they're asking to be led. They're asking for you to take power, to get people to do what you want, and then you lead them. That's Seth Godin's 4-step process. Just like baking a cake. If you do those things, you're going to be successful. Well, if you do those things, people will do what you want. Success, now, what you want them to do has to lead towards money plus meaning and purpose, because you can lead people to the dark side. We learned from Star Wars, right? Or Star Wars is a reflection on what we already know. Anyway, so then we get to Seth Godin, we get at the end of the day, say, okay, cool, I got David Logan. People form tribes, join a tribe, nudge it forward, got that, okay. Seth Godin, I got, okay, here's how I lead a tribe, or here's how I nudge it forward. I find something to change, tell a story, connect the true believers, and lead them. Okay, great. So the hard part in that is, how do I tell a story that's compelling? That's today's talk. That's Simon Sinek. That's probably the number 3 most popular TED Talk of all time. And it comes down to a very simple thing. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. It talks about almost 18 minutes almost exactly 18 minutes, repeating over and over and giving examples that it's our feelings, our emotions that cause us to behave in certain ways to inspire us. And I think fundamentally the idea is if you want people to do what you want, the best way to do it is to inspire them to do what you want, not to manipulate them, not to force them, not to make them do it, but to get them to want to do it for themselves, which is another thing Simon Sinek points out, is they don't do it for the leader, they do it for themselves. People didn't go see Dr. Martin Luther King because of him, they went because of themselves. And that becomes what our feelings are. So now tying, how do we tie Simon Sinek's thing into David Logan and Seth Godin? Well, the answer is the story needs to be about why we need to change the status quo. Not what we're going to change, not how we're going to change it. The story is, why do we need to change the status quo? And it has to drive people emotionally. It has to inspire them to want to change the status quo. It's not a logical thing. It's an emotional thing. Why do we need to change the status quo? Then, you know, when people say, okay, we're with you, what do you want us to do now? Now you can tell the what, and now you can tell the how. Okay, well, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do it. But the story is about why we need to change the status quo. Not about what we're going to change, not about how we're going to change it, but why. That's it. Simon Sinek, very simple. When you tell a the story has to be about why we need to change the status quo. And if people agree with you, yeah, we do need to change the status quo, here's the reason why we do need to change the status quo, and here's the reason why, they're going to be inclined to do it. And then you can have a lot of discussion about how you're going to do it and what you're going to do. And that's kind of a Nancy Kane thing in her crisis management, is to be very flexible as to how you're going to accomplish the mission, but have dogged perseverance as to what the mission is and why you're going to do it. So Simon Sinek, very simply, is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. You need to inspire people. They need to understand what motivates you to do this, and then they need to take it into themselves and say, I want to be part of that. That's it. Tomorrow we're going to do David Phillips. That's a little different story. That's about neurotransmitters. That's really now about taking the things we learned about last week, neurotransmitters, feelings, and getting people to do it. Because to be good at this, or what all good people do, is they start with the end in mind. What's the outcome I want? What's the behavior I need to get that outcome? What do people need to feel in order to behave that way? And what's the neurotransmitter that will get them to feel that way? What's the belief I need to have to trigger the release of that neurotransmitter? That's it. And again, coming back to Simon Sinek, the why is attached to the belief. When you're talking about why we need to do it, it's about what people believe. And it's about motivating them and inspiring them. So anyway, that's it. Thank you for being there. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll see class here this afternoon. I encourage the students to watch this over and over, and the ones that are not in jail and prison, or the people in Reno, for example, and the people here in Las Vegas, to just watch this on your cell phones while you're sitting on the bus or you're doing something, instead of playing video games or listening to music on YouTube or things like that. This is the most important thing to do. It's kind of like a Jordan Peterson moment of considering, what is the highest ambition I can do? What's the highest thing I think I could accomplish in the next 2 or 3 years? And ask the question, well, what is there better to do than that? And the answer should be nothing. Nothing's better than doing this, whatever the this is for you, and then dedicating your life to doing that. And as Jordan Peterson would say, and what's better than that? What's better than spending all of your time and energy pursuing the highest possible ambition you could achieve? What's better than that? Nothing. So instead of doing these other things that aren't leading to success, this would be a thing. And to watch this over and over in the Simon Sinek TED Talk today, and the Quizlet that goes with it today, and yesterday's Quizlet, and of course do the Coursera and practice your typing. There's a lot of stuff to do. But anyway, thank you for being there, and we'll see you tomorrow.